Yes, yes, we all know revivals, reboots are always better than the original.
Yeah, you want me back, I know you do.
The original is always this kind of like horrible demo phase with bad scripts and bad acting.
Everything I've ever believed is wrong.
And really, when it shines, it's a reboot.
Ooh, sounds like an odyssey.
No, I'm just kidding, guys. But seriously, I want to go over as many reboots, revivals from the 2000s content we've known and love as I could find.
It's not gonna be easy.
I tried to do this video so many times, tried to script it and find a way to actually cover everything, and there's just no way.
Not a chance.
There's comic books, there's unreleased movies from other countries, there's short films, music.
It's too much.
I don't even know how people got this creative in bringing back old series. And trust me, there's a good way to do it and a bad way to do it.
I don't know what you're talking about.
But I don't really want to get into the logistics of that. I kind of want to talk about all these interesting shows I found. You'll see a lot that I don't even think you realized were either rebooted 10 years ago or gonna be rebooted next year.
Exhibit A.
Like, it's a lot to deal with, guys. So sit down, put up your feet, find the remote because you lost it last week when Grandma was visiting.
Hey, is this thing on? Can you see me?
And let's get into Johnny 2000. What's up, everybody? Johnny 2000 here, focusing on 2000s media, movies, TV, and so much more. Let's dive into some of these new revivals.
Now we're going to clone it and revive the species.
Okay, so we start with 2005. I mean, clearly there's a lot of reboots and revivals from before then, but we're going to start in 2005 with some of the classic reboots. And this is one of the original reboots, Lunatics Unleashed. So this is a show that's aired in 2005, and it's a reboot of the Looney Tunes. Did you guys watch the Looney Tunes? Yeah, me neither.
That's all, folks.
No, I'm kidding. Of course I did.
He scared me.
Looney Tunes had multiple reboots, revivals, like a lot of different things. And this was like kind of the new era of bringing shows back. Something interesting that was new at the time. So this was on Kids WB, but there was a lot of other ones. That's when we get to 2008. Like, for example, we have Cory in the House. So Disney Channel definitely saw the potential in some of this stuff. That's when they got to Cory in the House. So Cory in the House started in 2007, went on to 2008. And this was an interesting one because I liked That's So Raven, and it was crazy to think that Disney was subscribing to the idea of sequels. It follows Cory Baxter's adventures in the White House after the events of That's So Raven. So this is definitely a spin-off. I would say more so a continuation, a revival of sorts, even though it only like happened the same year that That's So Raven left.
I'm past thinking. My fingers came down fast enough. Raven? Yeah. Hey, how fast can you get to Washington?
Is this fast enough?
So then after Cory in the House, it seems like Disney kind of had their hands on doing spin-offs. Like, for example, The Sweet Life on Deck. The Sweet Life on Deck is a prime example of early traditional reboots. So this was before I feel like everybody had this like reboot demand. Coming off of Cory in the House, I'm not surprised Disney decided to do this. It's interesting because taking from where The Sweet Life ended, they kind of ended on a cliffhanger.
Holy cliffhanger.
The interesting controversy behind this show is that The Sweet Life of Zack and Cody should have essentially gotten a 4th, 5th, and 6th season, but instead they decided to rebrand it as The Sweet Life on Deck so they could recontract everybody involved and only have to pay them first year's salary, essentially.
Oh, I'm sorry. Why don't we just relax? We'll turn on the radio.
So The Sweet Life on Deck is pretty infamous for being one of those earlier successes of the whole sequel spin-off series. Of course, we had the twins at the Tipton, and now suddenly they're on a boat, which is interesting because they're able to translate all their schooling and everything to the cruise. We get a lot of people coming back like London Tipton, Cody, Zach, like most main characters except for the hotel staff, like Maddie or Carrie or Arwen. So it was essentially like a whole new show, but still a continuation. Of course, then we have Merry Christmas, Drake and Josh. So Merry Christmas, Drake and Josh happened after the original show ended. Not super long after, but it's enough to be considered a revival because it had to come back to life for a little bit just to be involved. This was one of Nick's earlier revival ideas because, back in the day, they would just make iCarly or make Zoe 101. Those are things that are like almost like spiritual successors, but never full-on reboots. So this was like the first time they like really dipped their toe into reboots, and it kind of reminds me a lot of how like Zoe 102 came about. Like they just got the cast together for 1 hour and a half endeavor, if you will. This one I consider one of the successful ones, like definitely a great nostalgia one-off, and it's making Nickelodeon jump more into the reboot and revival sphere. That's when we get to 2010s. So 2010s, they got into the cartoon territory with Planet Sheen. Okay, so Planet Sheen is interesting because obviously, one of my favorite shows is Jimmy Neutron. It's a great show about this boy genius, and suddenly canceled. After 3 seasons, they were not able to keep going. So that's when we were left with Planet Sheen. So Planet Sheen is taking from Sheen Estevez's perspective after the events of Jimmy Neutron, which were episodic anyway, so it's not like a crazy deal of things were happening. But still, it was definitely not a welcome one.
Sheen, do not push this button.
I would say one of the failures that kind of gave a bad connotation behind reboots and revivals.
You disappoint me, Jimmy.
It started in October 2nd, 2010, and I just don't think it was super worth it. Speaking of Lunatics Unleashed, there's a reason I mentioned it, because not only was it one of the earlier ones that had continued the Looney Tunes franchise, but then we had the Looney Tunes show. And I don't know if you guys know my opinion on this already, but this is one of the best reboots I think I've ever seen. I feel like it's one of the best installments into the Looney Tunes franchise. It's essentially taking all the normal characters we know and love and are wacky and putting them into a sitcom setup with Bugs and Daffy living in the same house. I remember being super surprised with how funny this ended up being.
Crime?
Well, some might say being too good-looking. Nah, I'm just kidding. Contempt of court.
It definitely was a surprise and made me have a lot more hope in reboots. And that's when we get to some crazier reboot territory. Legend of Korra. So, The Avatar: The Last Airbender, definitely a legendary show on Nickelodeon. We can't discount how big of an impact that had. Like, even to this day, people keep watching it, let alone the fact there's going to be new projects coming up anyway. So, Legend of Korra takes place right after the last Avatar. It's like 100 years later, so not right after.
Dude, we've been waiting forever.
Whatever. And it's following Korra instead of Aang. And this time we have a whole new set of characters. It takes a much more serialistic approach to its storytelling, where it's only 13 episodes per season, so they kind of succinct all the plot events to happen quicker, which is almost an improvement of Avatar: The Last Airbender. So I definitely recommend checking this one out. It is worth your time. Speaking of worth your time, guess what's not worth your time? 2013's Teen Titans Go.
Ooh, nasty.
This one is a full-on reboot, not a revival. It doesn't take place after where we left off in the original Teen Titans, which is the biggest controversy. I mean, the original show was so good and well-loved, and they just had no right to make this show. But, like, this is the beginning of, I would say, like, the chibi animation style, where they take serious, really cool action shows and turn them into something more kid-friendly for the next generation. Clearly, it's not aimed at the people who like the original, but if you're bringing back the main cast, like, you might as well make something that works all ages, not just the youngest one. Otherwise, the most annoying thing about this is, out of all the reboots and revivals we've even addressed so far, this is probably the most successful, with over 10 seasons at this point. How in the world does this do so well? Especially for being so bad. It definitely has little continuity with the 2003 series, but they do make references to it a lot, so that's interesting. Then in June of 2013, we have another interesting one, Sam and Cat. So Sam and Cat is not a reboot, it is a revival because it's taking from where the previous show's events left off. This is one of the rare ones because, you know, Drake and Josh, Zoe 101, they've never taken from where each other left off, even though they have some confusing lore that may say they did. You know, like, they'll have Crazy Steve in, like, another show.
The cow says boo.
They reference Drake and Josh and iCarly, but they're not the same events. Sam and Cat was one of the bad ones, I would say, definitely not putting a good taste in my mouth about revivals. I feel like they dumbed down the worst parts of Victorious and iCarly and created something worse. So yeah, if you're ever forced to watch Sam and Cat, I'm sorry for you. Then we have one of my biggest travesties, Shaolin Chronicles. Not sure if you guys saw the original show, Shaolin Showdown, one of my favorite shows of all time, but Shaolin Chronicles is a reboot, revival. It kind of tries to be both in the most disrespectful of ways, keeping a little bit of neither, or taking a little bit out of both and not keeping anything that worked about the original. It gets really confusing. The issues I have with this show come a lot more with the storytelling than even the fact it's a revival or a reboot. Like, I just feel like they genuinely, were so focused on making it, they didn't care about it being quality. Or they did care, they just couldn't put it together in a way that mattered. It was one of the biggest letdowns I've ever experienced. They renamed all the Shengong Wu that the show was tied to. They pretty much changed everything slightly without changing enough at all. So it's a lot of nostalgia nightmare, I would say. This one was one of my biggest disappointments because never did I think it would take my favorite show from 2003 to 2006 and ruin it.
Why? Why have you done this?
But 2013 was an interesting year, so I guess that's just how it be. That's when we get to another good reboot, actually. And some may argue, some may think this is controversial, but I consider Girl Meets World one of the better reboots. I've seen Boy Meets World, and sure, it's a good show, it's a good 90s sitcom, but Girl Meets World does so much better than that show could have dreamed of. Not in the sense that, it's better quality, but it does a better job at meeting the expectations of the people watching it at the time. I can't even say it's better quality because it genuinely, has a lot of panned opinions, and I'm not a fan of the show to even, stand by why I think it was better. I watched Boy Meets World, and then I watched Girl Meets World, and I was just more entertained by Girl Meets World. Some would argue that the nostalgia made that worse. I would argue that it made me a better judge of character for the new show. If you could get a revival to be good on its own, Teen Titans Go was not good on its own. I think the Looney Tunes show was good on its own, but this one was really good on its own. Boy Meets World is hard to go back to, but this did things that original reboots needed to do. They needed to make a new audience, they needed to make new fans, and have something to jump off of. And the original show definitely gave aspects to start with, but they fully became their own series afterward, and that's just good for them. If you ever want a good show to watch Disney Channel wise, Girl Meets World's a pretty good one. Set over a decade later, we're following Riley Matthews, which is the daughter of the main character from the first original. Corey and Topanga, it's their daughter. So we get to see the original cast, we get to see the new people. Something about it made it a good TV sequel series. And if we have to go back to Looney Tunes, you're not going to be happy, but they did another new Looney Tunes show.
Will this never end?
In 2015, they gave the Looney Tunes another try, and it's kind of annoying because I feel like they hit their best years when they got to the Looney Tunes show, but doing the new Looney Tunes show is almost a step back.
My freshness, my freshness. You seeks to steal my freshness.
They kind of reduced the characters to be even simpler. They went for a younger audience, as opposed to the Looney Tunes show, who went for kind of an older audience, something I don't think we would have expected. Yeah, this was definitely a step in the wrong direction. It was a reboot because it was redoing everything again, even though the Looney Tunes doesn't have that much lore to begin with. That's just how I'm looking at it. So yeah, 2014, 2015, okay. Then we get to 2016. I have to kind of backtrack, but one of the good ones from 2008 was Ben 10 Alien Force. So they had the original Ben 10, and that worked out really well for it. Something they did really smart when they got to Alien Force is not wait much longer after the original show. Usually that's the issue, is you're waiting 10 years and everybody's already forgotten about it. But this took off right after the original Ben 10 series. Therefore, there wasn't necessarily a reason to have to worry about the pressures of catching up or the original show and how it worked. But yeah, Ben 10 Alien Force definitely was a good revival for the 2008. I would consider it a revival because it was essentially a continuation of the original series, just more mature, adapted character designs, and then they had older protagonists. This is what a real good revival would do. Of course, in 2009, they had another revival with Ben 10 Alien Swarm. But then we're back to the chibi series.
Here we go again.
Ben 10 2016 rebooted the series, unlike the revival of Alien Force or even Omniverse. They went back to the beginning again. They restarted it, so it's a reboot in 2016, and honestly, it's not that great.
It's just all a big mess.
It's shorter, it's cutting out any of the darker tones that I think people liked, but who's to say it didn't work out for the kids of the time? Like, maybe there's still some Ben 10 reboot fans out there. Speaking of that year, you're not going to be happy with this one, but obviously they had a Powerpuff Girls reboot, another chibi one.
Girls? Girls? Blossom? Blossom? It's me,
where it looks like they're significantly younger than they were to begin with. They're starting the story over. The only thing that's annoying about the 2016 reboot of Powerpuff Girls is that they rebooted it, but they didn't keep any of the original plot line.
Oh no, this is bad.
That's what I'm saying.
So it's almost like they half committed to it. It didn't feel super authentic to them. It was more like just a repackaging to get to the younger generations, which I never really like. I hate when they do it like that. But I don't know. The fact that they recast the original cast was probably the most disrespectful, because I remember all the main cast going on Twitter saying that they weren't even asked to come back, which is kind of depressing. After this was another reboot where they attempted to make a live action version. I'm not sure if you guys heard about that, but it was like Dove Cameron and a lot of famous people, even Donald Faison to play the professor. This would have came out like 5 or so years ago, but it just didn't work. This show almost got rebooted twice and was successful once. Like, the 2016 one was considered a success. And this is where I think Cartoon Network came into the picture more. I feel like we had some like negative connotations around this until Samurai Jack came out. So Samurai Jack started in 2001, and it's an action cartoon series featuring Samurai Jack, and there's not a lot of audio. It's a very visually driven show, and it was definitely one of the best of the time. This is the first time, I think, instead of rebooting a show, they decided to revive it.
It's time to end it, don't you think? Never.
As in taking from where they left off, something I was not expecting, and I feel like really turned the tides in terms of putting judgment around these things. Like, this is one of the better ones. Not only that, they utilized things that would happen later that iCarly did really well. For example, like, they adjusted to the maturity of the audience. So instead of doing a reboot like the Powerpuff Girls and just going back to square one just to fit the audience, Samurai Jack grew up with us. With 2004 being the final season of Samurai Jack, it was insane to think that in 2017, 13 years later, they would revisit it again. And it was cool the way they did it. I'm so happy they were able to find like the proper balance of nostalgia, maturity, and revival versus rebooting it. Like, they could have rebooted it, but they didn't. They wanted to make something more authentic. And this was really cool of them. Like, I remember being like, wow, they can actually do this right. And I had a little bit more hope going forward for the next couple ones. Like, for example, I know another one that I've been hearing a lot about is Raven's Home. So Raven's Home, unlike Cory in the House, is another continuation, another revival. So yeah, Cory in the House, 2007, that was a lot of fun, getting to know Cory Baxter on his own and in the White House. But now Raven's Home is completely following Raven once again, has a lot of the main characters re-involved, also introducing a new cast. I feel like it was one of the first revivals that really focused on the new additions as opposed to just the central cast. And yeah, this one kept its energy. And it actually outlived the original That's So Raven with 6 seasons as opposed to the original show's 4, which is so crazy. The original show went from 2003 to 2007, with the new one like lasting way longer than that. And I was really happy for them. I remember thinking right off Samurai Jack that this was like a more common thing, and probably a little bit before they went crazy with it. You know what else got revived? Another Looney Tunes type show. So they did a show called DuckTales a long, long time ago, and it was about Huey, Dewey, and Louie and their uncle.
Donald Duck.
Uncle Scrooge.
Uncle Scrooge?
With the original show being just like a 2D animated 1990s show, it was crazy to think that they would come back like almost 20 years later, probably the biggest gap between all of this. It came out in 2017 and was fire right off the bat. So this was one of the better cartoon ones as well. Disney was the ones to revive this one, not necessarily Cartoon Network or Nickelodeon. So it was cool to see the other ones take a step back while these guys were still continuing to figure out how it would work. Total Drama Rama, definitely one of the worst reboots. When they brought back Total Drama Island.
That's wonderful! ¡Qué idiotas! ¡Incompetentes!
So Total Drama Island, they kind of got revived every year, with each season being something unique, like Total Drama Action, then Total Drama Redonkulous Race. Like they had like almost 7 seasons of original content. So when they brought back Total Drama Rama and made it chibi and a non-canonical show for a younger demographic, none of us were excited. I thought they would take from where they left off, and it was so exciting to think that they could have, because it was a simple show. Like, Total Drama Island never went out of its way to be, a ridiculous show, so it wouldn't have even been hard. In 2019, they also had the theatrical film Dora and the Lost City of Gold, something I didn't expect to get great reviews, but it did anyway. So Dora Explorer went on from 2000 to 2014, and then this came out in 2019 by Paramount. And it portrays Dora as a teenager, and this is what we call like a reboot, because it's a reimagining while also keeping some of the continuity. And of course, we have CGI renders of Boots and Swiper.
Hola. What the?
While I'm not a kid anymore, so I don't really like watching shows like that, this was interesting. It's cool they gave it an attempt. I feel like it was 15 years too late. Like, that show went on for like 12 years. You couldn't have just done it slightly earlier. Remember from 2002 to 2007, the redhead girl that talked to Wade, this IT guy that would follow her around? Yeah, so when they announced Kim Possible coming back, I remember thinking like it was going to be the show until they started leaking some images of live action experiences. The fact that they had a modern movie in 2019 was super exciting. Patton Oswalt being in a big part of it, and then having Chrissy Carlson Romano come back for one of these. It was a nice one-off decom. So I like it when they got to do some of that. Then I want to talk about the double dipping that Nickelodeon did. And this is really surprising because Nickelodeon wasn't one to continue their shows a lot. So when they decided that Rocko's Modern Life and Invader Zim would come back, I was stumped. These are shows that have been gone for a while. Like, Invader Zim was out in 2001 to 2002 and then came back in 2019.
Zim! Yes, it is I!
Same thing with Rocko's Modern Life. See, that was 1993 to 1996, and it came back around the same year. Like, this was new for Nickelodeon.
Fellas?
Yeah?
I don't think we're in the 90s anymore.
They never really did stuff like this, except for the fact that Fairly OddParents was revived probably a couple times just from cancellation. At first, I wasn't sure what Rocko's Modern Life and Invader Zim were trying to do, whether it was going to be a full-on, like, bringing this back, or just a TV special to remind us what to be nostalgic from. This ended up being a continuation of the series, which I was excited about, but also it was in an hour-and-a-half form. Same thing with Enter the Florpus from Invader Zim. They brought back both of these shows and managed to have them take from where the others left off. I feel like this was a delayed response to the success of the Hey Arnold Jungle movie. Like, that was definitely really cool. And to see that they were, like, actually being successful in these states, it was more so for the fact that Netflix was getting to be a lot more prominent at the time and taking a new investment in Nickelodeon. Probably that they felt like they could take risks like this, which is great for them. Like, I love that they had a chance to do this. Like, fans of Invader Zim, like, were freaking out, especially, like, after so long of a break. But yeah, this one definitely was a win, I feel like, for both shows. We got back a lot of the original cast and the original writers and storyboard artists, so it was definitely a success in my eyes. Then we got, again, another Disney Channel one, High School Musical, the series. So This one I have a complex relationship with, mainly because I did my own show about a drama club in 2018, and this came like a year later in 2019 and really bothered me because I was making that already. High School Musical is originally a movie series with 3 installations, and they were originally going to have a 4th movie, but it got scrapped, and then way later they announced they were doing this show.
After years of build-up, we're finally here. Senior year.
I'm a junior.
And you're gonna stay a junior with that attitude, Carlos.
And it would be a musical, a Glee-type TV show, and it was very successful. It did really well, and everybody was watching it. So I guess that was like another win for them. That's when we get in the 2020s. Like, this is when things kind of went into full force when it came to revivals. Like, you'll see after 2020, there was such an up in the amount of revivals being done.
The 21st century is a very dangerous century.
In March of 2020, Henry Danger got its own revival. The original show was from 2014 to 2020, and then right after they had this show.
It all just kind of happened.
Oh, and they had Captain Man and new children superheroes in training.
This is not a drill! Get up to the man says, get your uniforms on right now! Go, go, go!
With 2 of the original cast members reprising their roles. For the most part, like, I feel like critics didn't love it, and people that are originally into the show still like Henry Danger better. So I wouldn't necessarily call this a win, but it definitely was a good time. I feel like there's been worse, you know? Then we have Adventure Time from Cartoon Network. This is one of the biggest shows of all time. Adventure Time from 2010 to 2018 was unforgettable. I feel like you can't compare a lot of cartoons to how revolutionary that show was. I personally didn't spend a lot of time watching it, but I remember when I heard that there was going to be a revival called Adventure Time Distant Lands, that would have been a really awesome experience. Like, going further, being a little bit more mature, they mentioned. They weren't going to do the chibi style, so we didn't really have to worry about it too much. Yeah. Oh my gosh, but who could forget the fact that they did this again with Fiona and Cake? But we're not there yet. We're not going to talk about the next sequel or the next revival series as much as this one. But yeah, Adventure Time came back. It was a series of cinematic movie style episodes, something in the vein of Invader Zim and Rocko's Modern Life with Nickelodeon, but this was Cartoon Network's way of coming back. It was kind of like a mini series, and it worked pretty well. It was like following one character at a time and their individual journey, which made it feel more like a story continuation than anything else. So yeah, Adventure Time, Distant Lands.
Yes, I will save your terrible land. It does need a saving, correct?
Then we have that same year, Animaniacs coming back. So this was a classic Warner Brothers animated series in the same way Looney Tunes was. This is one of the successful revivals.
All right, guys, there's a lot of pressure on our first lines. Wait, don't. Make sure it's good first. Maybe something reminiscent of the first season?
22 years later, and I'm still a knockout.
I actually saw like the pilot of this when it came out, and this was Hulu bringing it back, something I did not expect.
Here's your check for the Animaniacs reboot, you sellouts.
The original show went on from 1993 to 1997, which was one of the old 90s shows. It's crazy to think 90s and 2000 shows have been being revived for so long at this point. And suddenly, yeah, like 20 years later, it's back again. This is a full-on revival because it didn't have a lot of story elements to begin with, so they didn't bother trying to recreate it from the ground up. In 2020, we also got the return of, and wait for it, Phineas and Ferb. So Phineas and Ferb had a movie, Candace Against the Universe, based on the series from 2007 to 2015. And this would be an hour-and-a-half film. And I feel like it was very clearly a continuation, seeming like they were just going to go on to the next year's worth of issues, but they kind of just left it there for a while. Of course, now that we know it's 2025 and Phineas and Ferb is fully back, this was only temporary, but it's still crazy to think that from 2015 to 2025, this is all we got. So Phineas and Ferb came back, and it did a good job. I feel like I watched it exactly when it came out during the pandemic, and it caught the original tone of the show in a really good way. Like, it had Candace ruling the world, and it was awesome.
It's me against the universe.
With, of course, a couple musical numbers. It wasn't as good as Across the Second Dimension that they released like way before, but I still feel like it did a good job. And the fact that like they even are still going to this day is super exciting. We have our show iCarly, the 2021 revival series. So I'm doing a video on this right now. I can't wait to show it to you guys, but iCarly took its original premise and continued from where it left off. It was a full revival without having to reboot anything or change anything that happened, and it got funnier. I honestly think that the adult approach to this show did really well for it, and having them adulting in Seattle really works. Like, Nathan Kress, Jerry Trainer, and Miranda Cosgrove are great. It's hard to not look at the show and compare it to the original just because of Jeanette McCurdy being so iconic to it.
Yeah, I don't need a partner. I need Sam. But she's off following her bliss with that biker gang.
The Obliterators.
They did it, and I think I'm just happy they did anything. You know, it was nice to see that show come back and the main characters kind of take over that show in a way that, like, none of the revivals had done before. Like Miranda Cosgrove being an executive producer, Nathan Kress writing for the show, bringing back old Nickelodeon alumni to work on this. Like, this was an interesting time, and I feel like iCarly really turned the tide for how intense things would get with revivals. Of course, we can't forget about one of the worst revivals that year, the Rugrats CGI reboot.
Brother, what's that?
The one that you can't even find till this day. So they did like 1 or 2 seasons with a few DVD releases, but it definitely didn't do well. I remember being really disappointed with what I saw. Like, the animation was so cool. Great, but that was it. Like, they should have just come back with a movie. They should have made it no big deal, but instead they decided to go all out and reboot it. Not continue it, reboot it from the beginning.
You dumb babies!
Something that I was very confused about. So yeah, Rugrats ended early 2000s, and then next thing you know, All Grown Up came along with all these same babies portraying themselves and continuing the series from where it left off. Them going through things as teenagers and like struggling to get along in school. That was one of the earlier revivals that I felt like did really well because Rugrats was such a success. Like, you didn't see Wild Thornberrys come back. You didn't see any of the other ones, but this one was definitely a good one. And we can't forget, July 2021 also had Johnny Test come back. Johnny Test aired from 2005 to 2014, and it was one of those shows that, like, stopped after season 3, then came back, then stopped after season 11, then came back. I mean, there was just so much Johnny Test. I remember just shutting it off altogether. So, of course, Netflix, for some reason, decided they had to swoop in and order more episodes. This one is picking up right where the original left off, so it wasn't a reboot, it was a continuation again, and they did pretty well. I feel like it wasn't hard to recapture what they were already doing. It was definitely like refreshed animation, high definition, like I wasn't expecting so many quality of life things to get better, but it did. Oh, and one of the better reboots too was The Proud Family from 2022. The Proud Family, Louder and Prouder, is taking Disney Channel show from 2001 to 2005 and reviving it, premiering on February 23rd, 2022 on Disney+. And it was such a good idea to bring back the original creator, Bruce W. Smith, and have Penny Proud and her family exploring the 2020s.
My name is Penny. Yeah. I'm here to say. Yeah. La Cienaga's gonna pay. Yeah. If she steals my bag.
It's like the original voice actors reprising their roles. Everything about that had a good sign attached to it, and I think it just got better from there. Then we have Fairly Odd Parents, Fairly Odder. I'm not sure if you guys remember this one, but this is a funny story because it's a live action sitcom version of Fairly Odd Parents. Now, Fairly Odd Parents, it was revived in the past, but it didn't really, you know, like, it was the original series. The original series just kept coming back after like a year or so of hiatus. And then suddenly they were like, okay, we're going to actually try this again. After they did all these Drake Bell revival movies. I'm not going to get into that, but that does count as a revival. They had the Fairly Odd Parents revival movies, like the trilogy with Drake Bell, and that was cool because you got to see all the original characters live action. There was like a reason to come back, see them all grown up. That was a lot of fun. They thought they could just keep the magic going with Fairly Odder, and there is just something that does not translate to live action in the way that this intended. Like, we get Cosmo and Wanda in the original 2D animation. We get a laugh track taking the sitcom route. It was a little bit too many bold changes to attach to the original cast, so I don't think it caught on super well. Paramount Plus definitely didn't because they took it off their entire programming. The animation was weird at some points. Like, I can't get over how awkward it was. That's how that ended. Then, of course, we have Life with Luca. So this is a spin-off TV movie continuing the original Life with Derek TV show. Remember Life with Derek, guys? It was like a family show for Disney, but it never really stayed too long. It was more so a Canadian show. But in Life with Luca, it's a movie. And they're back again after being back for The Vacation with Derek, which was a feature film about Casey and Derek going away to camp. And then they brought back Life with Luca way later. So this came out in 2022, and it continued the 2005 to 2009 Life with Derek series. It was announced in 2020, and it was just cool that they brought these characters back. They were doing a really good job with the co-parenting situation.
Confiscate them. Or at least Lucas. Derek can make his own parenting decisions. I'm not judging.
With the family reunion, it was just all around a good revival. This is one I would recommend seeing if you cared about the original show. Although, I would say not a lot of people remember that. Then, of course, there's some things that were revived, but not like fully revived. For example, Ned's Declassified was rumored to come back. They talked about it a lot, and then it was just brought back by the cast themselves without necessarily involving the production. And I was kind of a fan of this. I watched this a lot at first. I fell off because I got a little bit bored, but it still feels like in the spirit of a revival, just in the sense that they take from where they left off. They give you tips in the same way the original show did. And the original show was great. Speaking of Animaniacs, we actually got a reboot of the 1990 to 1992 Warner Brothers classic Tiny Toon Adventures. And this was a full-on reboot, not a continuation, a reboot. Why? Because Babs and Buster, who used to be lovers, are now related. That's how you know it's a reboot. They're changing stuff, guys. I don't think it was a bad one, though. I think reviving this show was a good idea. Tiny Toons University does do a good job at keeping some of the comedy, some of the original heart, but unless you're the age that they're expecting, I think it's not going to be super open for us. So yeah, Tiny Toons University, definitely another revival. Not sure if it was good or not. Of course, we have Zoe 102. So Zoe 102 is a continuation of Zoe 101. If that wasn't horribly apparent, they did a good job in my opinion. If you guys have seen it, it's already out. We talk about how the characters come back. Not all of them do. It doesn't really live up to the same vibes.
I need another drink.
But I do feel like standalone, it works pretty well. Same way the Drake and Josh Merry Christmas one did really well. It's definitely a good one. Then we have that same year, Adventure Time Fiona and Cake, which was an animated spinoff of Adventure Time from 2010 to 2018. And yeah, we talked about Distant Lands. That was cool that it came back for a little bit and then had a full-on continuation after, in the same way Phineas and Ferb did. And then we have a new Total Drama Island. They announced it in 2021, and it came out early 2024. And this was going to be a return to form with its original setup.
We're back! Last season was painful.
But a different voice actor for Chris and a completely new cast of characters. Out of all the revivals, I do feel like this show did so much better than normal. Sure, we don't have the original cast. They're not up to their usual hijinks. But this was definitely a success in my eyes. I think it was funny on its own. The new characters are really interesting and modern. And they found a way to reintroduce this concept in modern age, which is fair. Survivor itself, which is the game show this is based off of, is super successful, and it's always been.
42 days, 16 people, 1 survivor.
With nostalgia bringing it back time and time again. And sure, they had a couple misses like Total Drama Rama, the chibi version. But this time, I think they did a good job at actually bringing back the spirit. So I would give this one a watch if you ever come across it. And before we get to Wizards Beyond Waverly Place, they had a Wizards Return, Alex vs. Alex TV special on Disney Channel. we had, of course, Wizards of Waverly Place run from 2007 to 2012, but later, a year later, which wasn't that much, but it still counts, they had like this post-finale reunion with the Russos. Unfortunately, they didn't have Justin, which kind of bothered me. I felt like that's what the whole point was, but I guess the reboot is all about Justin, so it makes sense and kind of works out in their favor that they had to do it like this.
Because I'm here to save it. Again.
Alex vs. Alex is really epic, and I can't wait to do my video review on it. Even though it's been a while, like, I feel like this is definitely worth the watch. It's a little trippy because it has the laugh track, but it's also kind of partially a movie, so it feels like they didn't really know what they were trying to do. But it's definitely, like, a good watch, especially if you're a fan of the original series. So I would recommend this if you haven't yet. So Wizards Beyond Waverly Place, I've been currently working on a retrospective for. It's just surprisingly really good. They found a way to take an original sitcom and make it really story-driven, making sitcoms and the Wizard franchise look better in the process. Like, I can't believe how surprised I was. Like any revival, like iCarly, like this, like, they had a rough time right at the beginning just because of our pre-connotations around the series. Like Alex not being there anymore, but still being a part of it. They also did the thing that the Ned's podcast did, where it was all the alumni reviving the show, something that was really prominent after 2020. Like iCarly started that train, then we had the Ned's pod, and then we had Wizards Beyond Waverly Place with Selena Gomez and David Henry taking over this time. And it's nice because it's always in good hands if it's the original cast. There's that like whole spirit of how it started in there. And I feel like they do a good cross connection between the first season of Wizards versus the first season of Beyond. So I definitely recommend this to anybody who hasn't seen it. Please watch it. It's so good. Of course, we have the revival of Phineas and Ferb 2. They've been in production through 2024 on to now, and a lot of the original show is back. Like, I feel like they have the songs, they have the plot lines, like, everything that worked about the original show was brought back pretty seamlessly, to a point where it doesn't even feel like it's been missing for 10 years, you know? So if you had the chance to watch the new Phineas and Ferb, I would totally do that as well. Something that also was fairly new. In 2021, they announced The Amazing World of Gumball coming back Season 7. I'm not sure if you guys have kept up with the news recently, but they actually brought it back in a reboot style. I mean, technically a sequel series, a revival, but it's starting at Season 1, so it's a new reboot, I guess. It's exactly the same way as it was originally, taking all the nostalgia and doing a little bit better than Adventure Time did with their revivals. Like, they knew what they were doing and how they wanted to bring back Gumball because they were thinking about it for so long. Like, I think it got announced like 2 or 3 years ago that they were even like working on something, and then Cartoon Network went dark, and then we were lucky to hear that Hulu had taken on the wonderfully weird world of Gumball. This was a 2010s show, and it was definitely known for its really cool animation style and its like fun storytelling, and showed that Cartoon Network really did have a commitment to bring back some of these other shows the way they're supposed to be, not like another Total Drama or another Teen Titans Go or Powerpuff Girls. Like, they completely stuck to it. We also had a Nickelodeon revival of the Thundermans. So not just Henry Danger with its new movie that came out in 2024. I think I did a review last year on it. But they also had the Thundermans. The Thundermans went on originally from 2013 to 2018 and came back with Paramount Plus, of course, because nostalgia was just in the air at that time.
Yeah, nothing's changed.
It was definitely like a backdoor pilot for a potential revival, and then it did. In 2025, they announced the Thundermans Undercover and actually had it coming. So the Thundermans Undercover is a whole new show, but also still within the Nickelodeon blanket, which it's still going to this day, and nothing is stopping it. Oh, and then we can't forget about some of the other bad ones, the SpongeBob ones. SpongeBob went a little too crazy in the 2020s. With 3 new movies, Plankton the movie, the Sandy Cheeks movie, Sponge on the Run.
Not recommended for non-sponges.
None of which I thought were living up to the original show's expectations. And it was pretty much feeling like a revival every time with how much they were trying to get new. They also introduced the Patrick Star Show and Camp Coral. Since 1999, it's had new episodes. It's never stopped. It's hard to almost categorize SpongeBob because it just kept going. And these are like spin-off series that didn't really keep the original vibe, but Camp Coral on its own has been going on for almost 2 seasons now, and The Patrick Star Show also continuing its run, with both shows getting new DVDs every year. Like, clearly SpongeBob is going hard and strong continuously. And then, of course, we have things that are upcoming. Like, for example, we have to look forward to a Victorious revival. Yeah. I don't know how much news you guys have heard of that, but we've been talking for a while about a revival starring Trina Vega.
Option B, me.
In Victorious, and I can't imagine what that's going to be like. I was pretty happy about how iCarly got rebooted, so I hope they do a good job. I feel like with the writers being the age that I am now, like, they definitely have good insight on the show, more than the original creators sometimes. So I'm so happy that they're going to revisit that. And of course, iCarly 2025 is a new movie. They're working on the iCarly movie after 3 seasons of the reboot. They got a new movie to finish off their series. And I'm excited to see where Wizards Beyond Waverly Place goes in comparison to that, because those two are kind of in tandem. You know, they were early 2000s shows that got revived and had a little bit of success, and they're doing well, and I hope they keep doing well. They also announced the Foster's Home reboot. So Foster's Home is going to be rebooted, and it hasn't happened yet. It will, and it is going to do the chibi style.
What did you just say?
And kind of focus on its younger generations. So I'm kind of hoping this turns out really good. I feel like the idea is great in concept. The style lends itself to be a lot like Weird World of Gumball. Foster's Home has always been a great show, hilarious comedy, and I think with Craig McCracken behind this, maybe it will come out better, but I'm not going to get my hopes up. Oh, and then of course, we already have the pre-greenlit Avatar The Last Airbenders movies coming out. Like, that's going to be fun. There's an Aang one, a Korra one. They have a little bit of a revival plan for every aspect of that show. I'm not surprised, because in 2020, it blew up all over Netflix. Of course, we want to see more Avatar series. And unfortunately, I have to kind of backtrack, but One Piece had a Netflix series. One Piece is an anime, and they had a show based off of the anime, and it did a really good job too. One Piece did a really good job at keeping the energy of the anime, the plot lines, and still making it not cheesy, especially since there's so much action involved. It's like hard to make something like that not cheesy. Considering Death Note was on it a couple years before, and that was not so great with Nat Wolff, by the way. Can you imagine Naked Brothers Band and Death Note being the same movie? Yeah, that would have done well, but it didn't. But One Piece did. That's why it's such a travesty that the Avatar The Last Airbender live-action series didn't work. Avatar The Last Airbender got rebooted, revived. It had a feature film that attempted to recreate the magic that it originally had, but it just didn't work. They were about to get it right this past time until the original creators of the show jumped ship. And I gotta say, there were some interesting concepts here. It was definitely better than the original movie, but it still wasn't meeting expectations. So it definitely keeps a lot of the fans and me worried about the future of Avatar, but I'm hoping that there is a little bit of monitoring when it comes to this. If we're talking about what should be revived, though, that is a new story. For example, I think the shows that really need to be revived, 1, Big Time Rush, which, by the way, I definitely have heard rumors constantly that there is going to be a revival, not a TV show, but probably a movie. Apparently, the boys got together and wrote a movie, which is totally in the spirit of the original show, considering they wrote those original songs to begin with. I recently saw their world tour concert, and it was every song from every episode, and it did such a good job. It felt like a revival in itself just to be at that concert, because they had clips from the show. They played every episode, songs, like Gustavo was there, even Caitlin Tarver. Like, that was a good idea. So I really hope they actually bring back Big Time Rush for good. Hannah Montana, obviously, we're waiting for Disney Plus and Miley to create the perfect storm and bring us back to the double life, but who knows how good that would be. I'm a little worried about the concept of it. it has to happen. You know, like, there's no better show to bring back than Hannah Montana. So if they don't do that, I'm going to be kind of upset. I kind of want the Naked Brothers Band to come back. You know, like, out of all shows that should come back, Naked Brothers Band, I'm totally into. Whew, now that was a huge amount. Even as I'm recording this final voiceover, I've found, I wouldn't say hundreds, but tens of more revivals and reboots that I've yet to even talk about. I think this is all a part of my new era, though, where I do want to kind of get more into reboots, comparing them to the original material, seeing how they work or don't work, because, I mean, IP is essentially a form of art, and it's curious to me how it gets adapted into our modern themes. It says a lot more about our cultures now than it did back then, and I feel like we have to talk about that. Like, that's fun. I have my iCarly Season 1 retrospective still being teased through Paramount, as they are suing me for it. I'm still working on figuring out how to get my iCarly revival video out there, but in the meantime, I have Wizards of Waverly Place and a lot more coming your way. So please, get comfortable, and thank you guys so much for watching this new edition of Johnny 2000, where we go over the revivals. I hope this was a lot of insight for you guys, and thank you guys so much for watching my channel. The support is so overwhelming. And I'm finally able to work on my side projects, which I'm so happy about. My new musical, Victoria Gray, is currently in its demo stage, so make sure you guys all tune in when I announce updates about that. And until next time, everybody, thank you so much for building this community with me. I couldn't have done it without you. This is Johnny 2000, signing off.